All right, so have you ever pictured yourself right in the heart of all the political action, but not the one up there giving the big speeches?
Hmm. Interesting.
Yeah, today we're doing a deep dive into a role that I think a lot of people might not realize is actually super influential. We're talking about the parliamentary assistant.
Yeah. Definitely a lot more to it than meets the eye.
For sure. And we're going to go way beyond just, what's in the job description. We'll look at the actual skills you need to succeed, the whole career path. It's really fascinating stuff, and how all this tech is seriously shaking things up, all based on this awesome guide we found from RoleCatcher.
Yeah, it's really easy to just think about politics as this world of, elected officials giving speeches and all that. But honestly,
Right.
the real work often falls on the people behind the scenes. They're the ones making sure everything runs smoothly, especially when things get a little crazy.
That's so true. And this RoleCatcher guide actually really emphasizes that, calling parliamentary assistants like the engine room of Parliament. And from what I'm reading here, it seems like it's way more than just, pushing paper.
Oh, absolutely not.
Yeah.
This guide really highlights how directly involved they are in all the procedures of Parliament.
Huh.
Think about it. They're the ones carefully going over super important documents or making sure everything fits those really complex rules and protocols.
Right.
That alone, that takes a deep understanding of all those rules and regulations that govern, how Parliament actually works.
Yeah. And then on top of that, you've got all the stakeholder communication. Sounds like you got to be a master at navigating different personalities and priorities.
Oh, for sure. The guide actually uses the phrase demanding stakeholders,
Ooh.
which I think speaks volumes. Imagine having to manage communication between a government official, a lobbyist with their own agenda, and a journalist looking for a story,
Oh, wow.
all wanting totally different things. And that's just a typical day for a parliamentary assistant.
That's wild. I never thought about it like that. So it's not even just about knowing the official rules of Parliament,
Right.
but also all those unwritten rules of how to handle those relationships without causing a total meltdown.
Exactly. You need some serious diplomacy skills.
For real. And we can't forget about how much tech has changed the game.
Oh, totally.
It's made communication and sharing information so much faster, but it's also kind of ramped up the pace and intensity of the work.
It's true. Everything moves so much faster now. So parliamentary assistants really need to be adaptable and able to think on their feet.
Absolutely. Speaking of adaptability, the guide lays out a pretty clear career progression with 4 distinct stages.
Yeah.
Let's break those down. What's it actually like starting out as an entry-level parliamentary assistant? What would someone at that stage actually be doing?
I think of it as really learning the ropes. At that level, it's all about those administrative tasks, meticulously revising documents, and really becoming fluent in those all-important parliamentary procedures. It's about building that strong foundation of knowledge and skills.
So you're getting down the basics, but what's next? The guide mentions a junior parliamentary assistant. What kind of responsibilities come with that step up?
Well, as a junior parliamentary assistant, you start taking on more responsibility, especially when it comes to actually preparing materials for Parliament.
Okay.
So this might mean drafting briefings for your member of Parliament, like summarizing these really complex policy documents, or even coordinating their schedule around all the major parliamentary events.
Huh. So it's you're moving beyond just the process stuff and getting into the actual content of the work.
Exactly.
Sounds like you need serious attention to detail and really strong writing skills at that stage.
Oh, absolutely. And those skills just become even more important as you move up to that mid-level parliamentary assistant role.
Okay.
Now you're not just supporting, you're really involved in research and analysis.
Wow.
Yeah, you might be tasked with producing reports on these emerging policy issues, or prepping your MP for committee hearings, or even supervising junior staff.
So at this level, it's you're not just keeping things running, you're actually starting to shape the work itself.
Exactly. And that brings us to the top board.
Yeah.
The senior parliamentary assistant.
Okay, the top dog.
This is where you become a trusted advisor.
Yeah.
Offering strategic guidance on policy matters, managing high-level communications, really shaping the political landscape.
It's pretty impressive how this career path lets you start with the basics and then gradually take on more and more responsibility until you're eventually in a position with real influence.
Yeah.
But let's be real for a sec. Getting your foot in the door in such a competitive field can't be easy.
You're telling me it's not always straightforward?
Right?
And that's actually where tools like RoleCatcher can be super helpful, especially for people who aren't familiar with the ins and outs of how to apply for political jobs.
Yeah. This guide has already been super eye-opening, but I'm curious what makes RoleCatcher different from all those other career platforms out there. Their AI-powered tools seem like a pretty big deal.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
Definitely imagine this. You find this parliamentary assistant position, and it seems like it was like made for you.
Okay.
So you upload your CV to RoleCatcher, and their AI gets to work analyzing your experience and the job description.
Okay. Walk me through this. What's the AI actually doing?
So it's searching for like those connections, those key links
Yeah.
between your skills and what the role actually requires.
Right.
So let's say the job description is really emphasizing experience in like drafting briefings,
Okay.
but your CV focuses more on like report writing.
Uh-huh.
The AI might suggest like some small but important tweaks to your language
Okay.
to really highlight those transferable skills that match what they're looking for.
So it's not even just about having the experience, it's about knowing how to talk about it in a way that like clicks with what these political employers want to see.
Exactly. And it goes way beyond just like tweaking your CV.
Mm-hmm.
The platform also has this huge database of potential interview questions, all tailored to different roles, including parliamentary assistants.
That's got to be super useful, but honestly, what I'm most interested in is the AI-powered feedback on practice interviews.
Oh, yeah.
Tell me more about that.
So you can actually record yourself answering those common interview questions and then get feedback from the AI on things like how clear you are, your tone, even your body language.
Whoa, that's like having a personal coach helping you polish your presentation skills and like project confidence.
Exactly. It's all about giving you the tools and insights you need to put your best foot forward.
I love it.
But remember, technology can only take you so far.
Right.
The guide really stresses that you absolutely need a genuine understanding of parliamentary protocols and procedures.
Yeah, that makes sense. It's one thing to say you're interested in politics, but showing that you actually understand how Parliament works, that shows real commitment.
Exactly. That's where networking comes in.
Yeah.
The guide really emphasizes how important it is to go to political events, join relevant organizations, and actually connect with people in the field.
So it's about like building relationships and showing that you're genuinely interested in the political world. You're not just looking for a job, you're becoming part of the community.
Exactly. And in a field where who, can be just as important as what, making those connections can be huge.
For sure.
The guide even suggests using social media to engage with politicians and their staff,
Oh, interesting.
showing them that you're paying attention to current events and policy debates.
So much of this role seems to be about showing initiative, being willing to go the extra mile and really having that passion for the political process.
Absolutely. It's a demanding field,
Okay.
but it also has the potential for you to make a real impact.
And speaking of impact, we've talked a lot about like the day-to-day of the role, but I'm curious to dig a little deeper into the bigger picture. What kind of influence can a parliamentary assistant actually have?
Yeah, it is easy to get like so caught up in the day-to-day stuff, but I think you're right. We got to zoom out and think about the bigger picture here.
Yeah, for sure.
Like what kind of real impact can someone in this role actually have?
That's such a good question because it's easy to see it as just a job, right? But when you really get down to it, it's about public service and like protecting those democratic values.
So you're a small part of something so much bigger.
Exactly.
But how does that actually play out in the real world? Like what can a parliamentary assistant do to really make a positive difference?
I think it starts with integrity. This
Okay.
is a job where you need to be discreet, ethical, and committed to transparency even when things get tough.
Right.
It's about being that voice of reason in a system that, let's be honest, can sometimes be anything but. Totally. It's about being like a guardian of those democratic ideals, even when you're dealing with like big personalities and really high stakes situations.
Exactly. And it's not just about avoiding the bad stuff.
Right.
It's about actively looking for ways to do good.
Yeah.
Like maybe that means advocating for a policy you really believe in,
Okay.
or making sure that communities who are often ignored have a voice in the process.
So it's about using your position and your access to like amplify those voices that might not be heard otherwise.
Exactly. And remember, parliamentary assistants are always learning and getting a deeper understanding of these complicated issues.
Right.
They're in this unique position to see the connection between those big policy decisions and how they actually affect people's lives.
So they're like a bridge between,
Mhm.
the theory of policy and what actually happens when it's put into practice.
Exactly. And that's a powerful place to be to anyone out there who might be feeling like discouraged by politics right now.
Hmm.
I want to say this. Don't ever underestimate how much impact even one dedicated person can have, even if they're working behind the scenes.
It's like being that quiet force for good, creating ripples that can actually lead to real change.
I love that. Well said.
Well, this has been fascinating.
Yeah.
We've really gotten into the nitty-gritty of what it means to be a parliamentary assistant, the skills you need, the career path, and even how tech is changing the game.
Yeah, for sure.
But I think the most important thing we've talked about is that potential to make a real difference.
Definitely. It's a tough job, but if you're passionate, you have integrity, and you're dedicated to public service, it can be so rewarding.
And hey, maybe one of our listeners today will be the next parliamentary assistant, changing the world for the better. Until next time, keep diving deep.